My only comment would be, generally I would be opposed to something like this, because in general, my principle is to keep government back, and this is that fine line. But I think Adam said it, and I think it's very true. But when it starts affecting the building right next to you, when your neglect can affect my property, that's the difference. If it was your house, a lot away from my house, a lot away from your house, it's a different story. When you have common walls, common drainage, common roads, it becomes more of a necessity. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, when it's affecting, you have the right to do whatever you want with your own building, but you also can't affect other people's buildings. But it's also other places in the code. So, I mean, I don't know if we really need a whole new ordinance. But
Yeah, so I don't know if it's, yeah, so the discussions I had with John, I had given him examples in our code. And it's in the water chapters, it's in the wastewater chapter, it's in the solid waste chapter, it's in the 150, you mentioned it. Is that the
155.
I mean, so we have authority in all of those chapters to enter for one reason or another, or for no reason, okay? It varies. So yes, our authority that we've talked about for past council meetings is, I don't think, you don't have the right to force yourself on somebody's property. That was the argument before. Well, our right is already in our ordinances, in those chapters. So that's true. We don't need a new ordinance to gain access to a property. But I think we still need a new chapter, because this specifies, here is why we're doing it. Okay, we could go and say, and reach back to another ordinance and say, you know, sorry, we have the right, but I think it's best to have it stated specifically in an ordinance. We talked about modifying an existing one to make it work, but came to the conclusion, let's have a separate one, because it specifies and it outlines why we're here, or why this ordinance exists, why we want access to your property, and it outlines what you need to do as a property owner to comply to the standards. So I think it's best fit in a separate ordinance. Even though it is overlapped here and it's already there. We could probably find a lot of instances in our ordinances where it's in this chapter, but it's also in this chapter. So
it removes some subjectivity by the code enforcement officer or whoever needs to enter the property, and it makes it a process. You know, they have to comply, so.
I can think of only one instance, maybe two, where a house was in such disrepair that the city finally took action. And in that case, it was a freestanding property. It wasn't even in a common wall or a common roof, but there was pest problems, there was danger problems from children passing there for school. Adam talked about a child running into a brick. That's pretty serious stuff, as far as I'm concerned. That's fairly serious if a brick's falling off a building at any time of day. But one question I have is, where do the sidewalks, Jason, where do the sidewalks become the property owners versus the cities? Where's the ownership? So if I'm,
Well,
Terry
just like
Clausen's,
with
Terry
anybody.
Clausen's here, so let's just say in front of Clausen's, where does the city?
Terry, stand up.
It's an example. Adam's here. Okay, where does the sidewalk, the city?
Well, our
where does the
ordinance
sidewalk-
states that, okay, so the ordinance states that any property owner I mean, anybody who has a sidewalk in front of your house, even though it's on city right away,
Okay,
that's
theirs.
that adjacent property owner has to maintain.
okay, I was curious where,
Whether it's replacing bad sections or shoveling or whatever, I mean,
I was curious where that
it's
was.
up to them.
Because I know some pavers are in there and I didn't know if,
You know, I've always left it, I mean, it was the city's decision to do that.
right,
I mean, so if there is bad sections of the decorative part, I've never held to that code because it wasn't their choice to do that.
Okay.
It wasn't their choice to have to deal with the maintenance of those things. So we've always done that as a city.
okay. All right, I was just curious.
And the goal of this too is to, I mean, to echo your statements, is to get involved before it becomes a condemnation situation. You know, to repair some things and be able to see those deficiencies. Because, I mean, the goal of Main Street is to absolutely support and promote the buildings that are here, not necessarily tear anything down, so.
What if we added in there that inspections are limited to once every 6 months? And it's whenever it's convenient for the property owner.
This is an annual thing
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
It's an annual thing already.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say you could,
So once you have your permit, there's no reason for another inspection until you have to get
Renew it.
alright,
Hey, now, the part about convenience, that can be hung out there forever. The one thing I really like about this is it defines ownership. You know, Hop, Skip, Jump LLC from Los Angeles, California owns this building. Good luck getting a hold of that property owner, you know, so there has to be some definition, there has to be some contact person. I do like that part about this, so.
I think it's useful to affirm a distinction, as I listen to the comments here, that this ordinance has nothing to do with a building permit. The permit we're talking about is a vacant building permit, a whole different animal.
It does talk about a building permit though, about like if you've got an active building permit. I said, unless I'm
But that's
misreading.
different than the permit we're talking about in the
I think we
ordinance.
removed
It's a vacant building permit.
Mike, can you weigh in?
Well, hearing different things, a building under renovation that has a building permit to work on is not deemed a vacant, I
Right.
think is what you're referencing.
No, I'm saying they don't even need a permit.
They don't.
Yeah,
If it's,
so
If they don't, and code enforcement, yeah, if it's under construction or remodel, is that what
It
you're talking about?
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it is or isn't, it doesn't, if I'm remodeling my basement, I don't need a permit.
No.
Okay, there's no, but if I'm putting a deck on, I need a permit.
Correct.
And so that's where it's a little confusing. I think we're talking two permits. We're talking a vacancy permit. And then if they're doing renovations, we wouldn't know until the year's up, you know.
well, if they, yeah, so we're talking about the
Talking about the
exceptions in A. So if Cass's are redoing their building over there, they don't need a building permit. Okay, but we're aware they're working on it. I mean, it's obvious they're working on it. So that's where it's the authority, you know, as determined by Lamar's Code of Ordinance officer. I mean, if he says you don't need a building permit because you're just doing interior stuff, then you don't need, then you're exempt.
Yeah.
You're not just letting the building sit there, you're actually renovating.
It says evidenced by a valid building permit or as determined by the city of Lamar's code enforcement officer. So,
Okay.
And I just, you know, maybe a couple of my 2 cents worth, I really think, you know, we could issue something paper for a vacant building, but I think we should reword it not as a permit, but a vacant building registration. You know, and I've said that from day one, just register your structure as a vacant building with the city of Lamar. We could call it a vacant building registration rather than most permits that leave my office are assigned a number, a permit number. We could this, issue, we're gonna keep a registration log or a file of vacant building registration, something to that effect. It takes some of the confusion out what's a permit and what's a registration, so.
So page 4A.
John, could you come up to the board?
Yeah, come up to the mic, please. We have someone on.
Yeah, I know. So page 4A, how's that one work?
Well, it says if you have a building permit,
Yeah, but you don't need a building permit.
okay, but that's what, then check the next section.
Some
Or he
Or
decides.
decides, that's what you're saying, so
Yeah.
as evidenced by a valid building permit.
Or.
Okay.
And it does depend on,
That actually came from the first time we were here. That was
Right.
changed from the first hearing we had.
Because you didn't need a building permit.
well, and there could
Certain
be
things
such,
don't need a building permit. Yeah.
Yep, gotcha.
there could be times when a building permit would be needed, so.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 972.
Did we close the hearing?
Oh, I guess I gotta close the hearing officially from public input, unless there's anyone else that needs to stand up first. Okay? And then I'll turn it over to the council.
Ready,
Go ahead,
set,
Mike.
go. Motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 972 to add chapter 161 vacant building permit to the Morrow Code of Ordinances.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Wick?
Yes.
Sturgeon?
yes,
Brunt?
Yeah.
Donlin?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you for your input. Thanks for people showing up. I appreciate it and sharing your input here. So, moving on to general discussion. Any citizens out there that have general discussion to add, now that they're all leaving? Seeing none, thumbs up award. We'll start with you, Mark.
I got nothing.
Steve.
Thumbs up to all of the citizens, 95% of the citizens who followed the ordinances for shooting fireworks and stopped at 11 o'clock. There were a
Amen.
few others outside of it, but overall, I thought they did a great job.
I will echo that. That was true in my neighborhood anyway. People followed the ordinance. I also want to give a thumbs up to the Plymouth County Museum and their efforts on celebrating the 4th of July. That was a nice parade and a nice gathering that they had, and I appreciate all the volunteers that put forth a fair amount of effort in that event. So, Clark.
Yeah, I want to echo Steve's comments on the 4th. I thought people just really adhered to our ordinances, 98% of them. My dog hates it, but he gets to go through that time period pretty high. So I think he kind of likes
Is that another ordinance?
kind of the happy dog pills for the 3 days, but he enjoyed that. And then periodically during thumbs up, I'll do a hats off, and I just want to say hats off to Ron Kaiser, longtime city employee. Supposedly he died last night, kind of unexpected, so he was a good employee. He did a good job for us, so I was saddened to hear that, so.
I concur. So, Brian?
Pass.
That's,
Passed. All right. Consent items. Under the consent items, we have an approval of the June 21, 2022 regular minutes, a list of bills for period ending 6/30/22, renewal of liquor license, outdoor service area, beer permit for the Legion Daily Stop and Habitué, a certification of municipal utility liens, and interfund transfer resolution. Jacob, do you want to comment on the inter-fund transfer resolution?
Yeah, so last time we did an interfund transfer resolution, I over-transferred, and so this is to back out.
Under transfer?
Yeah, this is to back out the over-transfer, so that was my bad, that's why it's not here again. And there's certain, because it's the end of our fiscal year on June 30th, we try to have our funds in the right category at the end of the year, and so that's why we're making sure that they're in the right spot.
Has he had his employees review yet? Motion to approve consent items 1 through 5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is this roll call?
What do you do?
Yeah, so it
Is there a
includes two resolutions.
Yeah, there's a resolution.
Yep.
Wick,
Yes.
Sturgeon,
yes,
Bruns,
Yes.
Goodchild,
Yes.
Yes.
Diamond. Gotcha.
Quick all day.
Don't expect
Moving on to action items. Assistance request from Morrow Properties. So Morrow Properties LLC is proposing a construction of a 12-unit apartment building on Lot 1 and part of Lot 2, Lamar's Business Park, First Edition. Morrow Properties LLC is pursuing financial assistance for a portion of the cost of this project, and as such is requesting approval from the City of Lamar's to submit application to the Iowa Economic Development Authority for funding through the Workforce Housing Tax Incentive Program. Administration is recommending the city fulfill a local match through our Urban Revitalization Plan tax exemption. The plan allows for 100% tax exemption of taxes on new construction for the first 7 years on multifamily residences. The estimated total tax exemption amount is $142,697 over the 7-year period.
And that is, keep in mind, that's just an estimate because tax levies change. But that's based off of Hugh's estimate of the value of the apartment when it's built, after it's done, so, which is 1.37 million.
And this is consistent with everything that we've ever done?
Yeah, same,
It's the exact
same. At this ground, I don't know if you guys know, so this would be, he just recently purchased ground from LBIC behind Northwest Bank
Right.
there,
Yep.
back towards the airport.
Yep.
Okay, he just bought that piece of property, so that's where this is going.
Motion to adopt resolution number 22-25, approving the Workforce Housing Tax Incentive Program application to Iowa Economic Development Authority for the construction of multifamily housing by Morrow Properties LLC.
It should be 24.
You want to do the 24? I thought it was 25 too.
I stand corrected, 24.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. A roll call.
Sturgeon,
yes,
Goodchild,
Yes.
Diamond,
Yes.
Wick,
Yes.
Bruns,
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to the Mars Alley Improvements Project. Beck Engineering, Inc. has prepared plans for the 2022 Lamar's Alley Improvement Project. This project will remove and replace the alleys south of Plymouth Street, Pizza Ranch to the Lamar's area dialysis, and the alleys north of Plymouth Street, Brown's Theater to Century 21 on the west side of Central Avenue. Proposed schedule, July 5, 2022, council sets public hearing. July 19, 2022, public hearing to approve plans and specifications. August 15, 2022, bids due at 10 a.m. August 16, 2022, award. June 30, 2023, completion. Administration recommends approval by council to proceed with public hearing. The estimate of the project is $425,716 to be funded by road use tax.
Actually, any questions on where it is? It's divided into two phases. We don't want north side and south side being worked on at the same time, so it's just like central, complete one before you move to the next. So that's why there's a little bit of a longer completion time. And it's stated in there that they're allowed to start this year, but if they start this year, they
Have to
better
finish.
make sure that they complete.
They have to finish, right?
Because we don't want one part of the alley closed the entire winter, so. That'll be, I suppose we'll have to consider that depending on how they turn their bid in. Landon's here from Becky Engineering, if we have any specific questions on, I guess, the construction of it, but,
Jason, are they doing anything with the stubs that run back to First?
yeah, so it's,
both
yeah,
of them are.
yeah,
That's in the project?
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
It's complete replacement though, right? It's
Yes.
rip out, and where are we at in this whole concrete thing? As far as awarding these projects, knowing we can get concrete?
I have not heard anything new.
Do we need to talk to Beck about that? About putting something in here, where if they start, that they have to be sure they can get concrete back before they start?
Before they tear it out.
Before they tear it out. So I mean, if they start the project, they've already been allocated whatever yards of concrete they're gonna need. We probably need to
yeah.
talk to them.
Do you know that, Landon? I mean, so far, Clark, it hasn't, Steve Harris says doing Central, they haven't had any concern with it affecting their project.
Okay,
But
Yeah.
who knows what it's gonna be like.
where are we at on the airport? Because that was the one in question.
That, we haven't got anything new, and no new information on that.
But what I'm asking is, do you think it would be germane to?
Do you know what, do you think there would be a concern?
We haven't experienced any issues getting ready mixed concrete. There's been very long lead times with precast pipe and stuff like that, but there is no storm sewer pipe really on this project.
No, I mean, so the issue, I don't know if I had that, so apparently we've heard that there is
Rationing.
potential